Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here. That is my dog Augie. Just woke up. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. He's been sleeping all day and he's very happy to be just lazing around. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a healthy self-narrative. Now, what does this mean? Well, I was talking today to a client who's a regular client, and he's in the middle of working toward getting a different job. And the people he's working with are considering him for bigger things. He has a supervisor who said, "You could take this regular job, but this isn't how we envision you. We see you for much bigger things, and we have other positions available for you. We'd like you to consider them." Now, I've been working with him on the way he sees himself, and this has a little bit to do with how do we see ourselves in our personal brand. Negative self-talk can affect how we show up in our personal brand, and that's a little bit of what we're talking about here. In the way he said it was almost as if he wasn't being serious, but he said it. And he said, "Oh, I know they have big plans for me, but they're kind of outrageous, and then they can't possibly be serious. I couldn't possibly do that kind of thing, or they're going to come to the conclusion that it's not realistic what they're asking me to do." And so I pressed him on it. I said, exactly why would they not think that? And he said, "Well, always in my head, I want to take the safer bet. I want to go with what's predictable. I like being in a comfortable space. High risk is uncomfortable. Not knowing how things are going to play out is uncomfortable. And if you said to me, I have this great unproven project, an unproven role that I want you to do, just hang tight, we're going to do this work." His response is, "That doesn't feel good at all, and I don't think that'll be successful because with so many unknowns, I'm not going to be able to pull it off." Now, when I did push him and say, "Is this really inside your head?" Because the reality that we're getting when we get information from other people is they do have confidence in his performance, and somewhere along the line, it was proven that they would be right, that picking him to do a big major project would be a good idea. So we needed to reconcile how he sees himself inside his head versus how he's actually been showing up and how other people perceive him and why they're giving him bigger, unproven projects because they think he can handle it. And I wrote down what he said to me because he said, well, this was a learning moment. And he said, "I need to remember that negative self-assessment does not equal humility." So why this is important, or what he was experiencing, was that when he downplayed his accomplishments and said, "I'm nobody special, this isn't that big of a deal, anybody could do it," he was creating a narrative in his head and setting expectations for himself that he should only be achieving certain things. He also believed putting himself out there that way made him look like a humble person or someone who was balanced, not egocentric. And he veered away from stepping into his authority and his experience and his track record for success because he wanted to be, just a humble guy who just shows up to work. And that's the persona he wanted to project. A very big part of this video is to remind you that when you're having major conversations about getting in front of decision makers, getting in front of stakeholders, talking to people when they have potential for big projects and they're asking you, how do you have the time to get on this project, or your career development plan has reached a level and we now want you at the next level. This is what we have in store for you. Take time and step back and ask yourself, how on earth did they make this connection and think I could do that kind of work? If it seems odd to you, go back and ask yourself, where have I been playing small in order to project that I'm not an egocentric egomaniac? Because what we do know is we see these people all the time, the ones that love to just be in the spotlight, the ones who love to brag all about, I did all these accomplishments. I actually have been working with someone else, and she said to me, I felt for her because she said, I want to be able to show off my accomplishments the way my colleagues do. They all know how to market themselves and their wins, and I don't. So part of that conversation was about how can you genuinely show up and feel confident in your wins without feeling like you're overcompensating by behaving like these people who overdo it. So for my client, what we needed to do was understand how he might have been overcorrecting because he wanted to be perceived a certain way. Now, did that work against him? It may have been holding him back, but it obviously wasn't holding back the people around him who kept saying, we need you for these bigger projects. Why do you keep going for these small things? And he kept saying, I just figured that was the proper protocol. I figured that's the way we were supposed to do it. I go to this job and then this job and then this job. And they said, no, we have something over here that's much, much bigger, and we need to prepare you for that. So he seems blindsided. He seems surprised. And part of the exercise is to go back and think to himself what he actually has been accomplishing all the way up until this moment that would give these decision makers the idea that he could take something completely undefined and run with it. For you, I'm asking you, do you have those moments in your life where, or in your career actually, where you've said to yourself, it wasn't that big a deal. I do these projects all the time. It's just pretty standard because I know how to do it. If you tell yourself that as a way of you saying, oh, I'm just a humble person who's just here to make sure the business stays afloat or to make sure that the projects get done correctly, ask yourself further, when do you show up a little bit more like my other client who said, I need to start talking about my wins, but it needs to be authentic and come from my heart of, I appreciated being on this project. Here's the things that we accomplished. If it's hard for you to say, here's what I did, then by all means say, here's what we did. When I was running this project, we accomplished these things. It takes the pressure off of you a little bit until you feel comfortable making those statements. This is all about making sure that you at least accept congratulations for a job well done that you know you deserve, and spend less time saying, oh, it was no big deal. I don't remember where I read this, but the answer was, I think it was about influence. Robert Cialdini, I'm going to give him credit, even though I haven't researched it. But one of his, Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, I'm going to link it down below. One of the examples that he gave was when somebody says, thank you for this work, you might be inclined to say, oh, it was no big deal or no problem. But in reality, that means you're diminishing yourself. And just like my client who said a negative self-assessment does not equal humility, when somebody thanks you or acknowledges the work you did, it's okay to say, you're welcome, and then to quantify it. We really worked hard. You're not deflecting, but you're expanding the reach of the compliment if it feels uncomfortable for you. So plenty of ways for you to respond, but have awareness. This is all about awareness. This is all about self-reflection, and it's all about retraining your brain to understand what your personal brand is as you show up. And when you go to bigger and bigger projects and get in front of more influential people, they're going to say, that was a job well done. You are going to want to respond with, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. We worked really hard together. Or thank you, I really appreciate the kind words. Practice saying that. If you have a habit of saying it was no big deal or, it was a group effort, I'm not the only one. Stop diminishing your accomplishments because you feel like that shows that you're a bigger person. It's holding you back. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you like this video and you want to see more, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, and please hit the notification bell so you can see more videos from me. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.